Gabrielle Balassone here. I'm watching Kendall Talks.
Preview.
Stop. Stop.
What's up, guys? It's your host, Kendall Tucker, and today's special guest is not a one-time, not a two-time, but a three-time survivor on Naked and Afraid. Today we've got Gabrielle Balassone. Say that correctly?
You got it right.
Thanks for joining us. How you been?
Life is good. Managing with the COVID situation and whatnot, but we're doing good.
Yeah, I'd ask you, how the quarantine's been treating you, but this is probably a walk in the park compared to being naked in the wilderness, for sure.
Yeah, not so bad.
For those who have never seen Naked and Afraid, the show takes one man and one woman who have never met before, and they drop them off in the wild, butt naked, and that's where the man and the woman meet for the first time, and their goal is to survive 21 days, sometimes less if it's a fan edition, sometimes more if it's the XL edition, but I got that right for the most part, correct?
Correct, exactly.
Okay, so I want to talk about you for a second. What's your background? What made you think you could tackle Naked and Afraid?
Honestly, I watched the show and I thought, I'd watch it and people would whine and complain and quit and tap out and all that kind of stuff. And I always watched and I thought I could do this. I grew up on a little farm. I spent a lot of time outdoors, catching snakes and turtles and hunting and fishing and, just spent a lot of time in the woods and camping. So, I was like, how hard can this really be? And I thought I just had the mental toughness that it would take for something like this. And I put in an application.
Nice. Yeah. And see, a lot of people say that. Like, I'm one of those guys that probably say I could do that, but in real life, I'm not too sure. But
so many people tell me how they could do it and how they would do it. It's constant.
Yeah, I bet. So what is it that you do for work?
So I'm an attorney in Maryland, but I work as a contract manager for a defense manufacturer.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So I also was that.
You don't have to pretend. It's not that exciting.
No, but that is cool. And I also seen that you're a rugby coach, or you used to coach rugby.
Yes, I've coached rugby for 5 years now, or a little shut down because of the current situation. But I coach high school girls rugby.
Oh, wow. How long have you been playing rugby and doing rugby?
I started when I was 8 years old. So I played all through high school and college and women's team. And now 5 years of coaching now that I'm too old to play.
Yeah, well, that's cool. I don't know too much about rugby, but I know it's pretty hardcore. That's all I know about rugby. That's awesome. Now let's talk about your experience on the show.
Sure.
I don't want to talk about so much what we see on TV, but what we can't see. And you've been on the show 3 times.
Yes.
The first time was a 14-day challenge where you were partnered with Jonathan and dropped off in the jungle of Africa, and he dropped out on day 5.
Correct.
And you completed it. The second time was a 21-day challenge. You were dropped off in Mississippi, and your partner gave up on day 7. And the third time was the 40-day challenge where you were dropped off in the Philippines, and you were dropped off with a group of people for that one?
Yeah, so you get sent out there with 2 partners, and then eventually you meet up with other groups of people that are out there as well. Gotcha.
Okay, cool. So pretty much what I'm trying to say is you're pretty freaking BA. I mean, you completed all 3 of them, so that's pretty cool. So let's start at the beginning. You applied to be on the show. They call you and say you got the spot. How long do you usually have to prepare from the time they call you and the time you're on the plane heading that way?
Okay, so there's a little bit that happens between the application and the phone call that says you're going to go here or there. But so you go through like interviews. There's some Skype interviews, and they fly you out to California. And then if they eventually like you, then they say, okay, we're going to give you a shot on the show. And it varies depending on which country you're going to, what kind of visa regulations a country has. There's a whole bunch of different things. So I've gotten a call on a Saturday before to see if I could fly out on a Tuesday, the following Tuesday. But that was for a domestic show. For South Africa, I got a call maybe a week and a half or 2 weeks ahead of time, and plane tickets to South Africa. I had to actually fly out to California and get an emergency visa to then go to then I flew to California, got a visa, and then flew to South Africa a few days later. The Philippines, I had a little bit more notice, but not too much.
And they tell you which country you're going to go to at least?
Um, Not necessarily. If they don't have to, they don't want to. So they'll tell you the minimum amount of information that they can to, to get by. And you have to get a bunch of vaccinations. So you can kind of whittle down where in the world you might be going
Mm,
to based upon
yeah.
those vaccines. Um,
Okay.
but like I said, it just depends. I know people that have gotten the phone call the day before and said, somebody dropped out. Can you fly to Honduras tomorrow? And they
Wow.
plane and go.
Wow, that's crazy. So I mean, I felt like they would have to tell you at least a little bit about where you're going, just because you don't know if you're going to be in a desert or if you're going to be in the jungle or an island. I mean, maybe they don't have to tell you, but I just
Yeah, they don't have to, and a lot of times they don't. Um, yeah, sometimes, like I said, sometimes you have some idea. You're flying South African Airlines, and you might know you're going to South Africa or whatever.
yeah, yeah, I
But
gotcha.
there's clues you can kind of figure things out. And like I said, the visa situation, you might have to sign for a visa, but they keep it to a minimum um, until you get there, and then you get a little bit of insight into what the local, you know, uh, wilderness is like, I guess.
Are you there for like typically like one day before they take you off, or do you get off the plane and go straight then?
So it really varies. I know when I did my Mississippi challenge, I got in on like a Thursday evening or Tuesday evening or something, and then the next day, I was inserted around noon. So
Mm.
it really depends. When you travel further away, I find that they don't want jet lag to be part of the challenge, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you're going to get 2 or 3 days to get acclimated to the time, to the temperature,
Mm.
to just to life on the other side of the world before they stick you out there and tell you to survive naked, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. So, do you try and pack on as much fat as possible before you leave, or do you try to be in the best shape?
Yeah. So me personally, I find it a combination. I go on a milkshake diet, and I try and put on like 20 or 25 pounds before I go out there. Um, but at the same time, I like to go on extensive hikes and try and hit the treadmill and,
Mm.
work out with my rugby girls and do whatever I can to try and maintain fitness, but also maintain fat, right?
Yeah,
I know other people that try and shrink their stomachs. But all the people that I know that have been very successful, they try and pack on weight before they go out there. A lot of fat.
gotcha, gotcha. So, is it true that you never meet your partner until you meet butt naked in the woods?
Yeah, so for the most part, that is true. My first two partners I didn't meet until I was out there in front of them.
Hmm.
With the XL, it's a little bit different because you're in a remote location and let's say they have 12 cast members that are all in some small remote village in the middle of the Philippines.
Yeah,
It's not as easy to keep those people apart. So occasionally, you'll meet up with other people, or you'll get a hold of them somehow, some way. Obviously, they can't take your technology away before you
yeah.
get out there. So that's tough, but, yeah, at least for, like, a regular standard Naked and Afraid, you meet your partner when you get there.
Wow. So, how awkward is that? I mean, what people don't think of is the behind the scenes cameramen, the medics, the sound people, all those people seeing you naked as well. So, how many people are behind the scenes typically um, when you get undressed?
So it depends. The standard Naked and Afraid, you typically have, 1 cameraman, 2 cameraman, a sound person, and a producer out there. So a crew of 4. Sometimes you might have a couple assistants that are kinda running things behind the scenes, but they're kind of, behind the scenes. You don't see them very often. Um, but then for something like XL, which is a much larger production, there's a lot more
Yeah.
people and a lot more crew members. Um, yeah, so you're naked and you're in front of a lot of people. Um, and
That's
it's
funny.
funny, but you get used to it really fast.
Yeah. Did it get easier to strip naked by the second and third time, or was it awkward every time at first?
It's always awkward at first, but I think after the first time, it does get easier. It also helped that my first partner, Jonathan, he is a gay man, and he made things about as comfortable and as friendly and
Yeah.
as he possibly could have. So because of that, I guess you got the awkwardness out of the way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, that's good.
Mhm.
At what point is it not awkward anymore? Does it stay awkward, or is it like, all right, we both seen each other, we're both nasty, we're dirty, whatever?
Yeah. I mean, I would say within an hour or two, you stop trying to cover yourself up. You're not as not as self-conscious. There's so many other things on your mind and so many more important things to focus on
Yeah.
than being naked. And, you know, by the time you get out of there on day 14 or 21 or 40, you don't want to put clothes back on. It's so fun, just who
Yeah.
cares at this point?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny because when you see the two approach, a lot of times like the girls are kind of like hi,
Yeah.
and then like you said,
Have it
by
back over.
the next hour, yeah, it's like who cares? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
that
You
is
get used to it pretty fast.
that is funny. Now, what
Mhm.
did your now when you first went, you weren't married, but you were engaged?
So I had a significant other. Yes. And I actually, I had a year-and-a-half-year-old little boy, and my now husband and I were on again, off again, trying to make things work. But he was from the other side of the country, and then we have since gotten married. We actually have a second little boy. I have a 6-month-old, and
Oh, nice.
yeah, and a 6-year-old. So
Very cool. What did he think about the whole? Was he thrilled about it, or was he not very happy about the whole naked experience?
he couldn't care less about being naked. He's still like for the first couple years after Naked and Afraid, whenever he would get in the bathtub, he'd say, "Look, mommy, I'm going on Naked and Afraid," and he didn't care about that part of it. He did miss me, and every time I go, he says he's gonna miss his mom, but when I get back, it's always a nice reunion, and he's in good hands while I'm gone, so that's
Yeah.
reassuring in my mind.
Yeah, that's good. So after you strip, you walk in the woods where you meet your partner, and there's a bag hanging there with a map and one item you're allowed to bring. Do you actually pick that item, or does the show pick it for you?
So I'm pretty sure this information is available online, so I'm not telling any secrets here. Um, Typically, you bring a couple items with you, and then production's actually going to pick which of those items are best
Mm,
suited for the area, right? Because I don't know what the area or the terrain is like, and if I bring a water purification tool or a pot or something, but fresh water is readily available there, they might skip on the water purification tool, right? And they might give you something else that's more useful in the terrain you're in. Um, so yeah, that's how that works. That's why I don't want to say never, but never see someone bring the same item as their partner, right? Because
yeah.
wouldn't you see a whole lot of people bringing two knives or a whole
Yeah,
lot
I
of people
thought
bringing
that.
two fire starters?
Yeah, I thought that. I was thinking that too. Now, wherever you decide to make your campground, does the camera crew camp there as well? And what's the living conditions for them? Are they in like trailers and like
So this is another. It depends. I'm a lawyer, so that's like our favorite words to say. It depends. Um, um, so depending on the location and what's nearby. When I was in Mississippi, we weren't that far from inhabited lands, right? So
yeah.
they're staying in a Holiday Inn or whatever. When I was in Africa, I was in a really remote part of South Africa, and um, I was in a game preserve, and I guess it used to be a leper colony, so there were all these cottages. So the production crew stayed in the colony, the former leper colony. Some of them camp in tents. I know that, like in Colombia and in Ecuador, sometimes they're so far into the jungle that the crew stays in tents. I know like in the Philippines, they stayed in a hotel in the small town where
Hmm.
where we were outside of. Hmm.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now they film during the day and they have cameras set up at night. Are they taking lunch breaks and eating food in front of you guys during the day, or do they kind of keep it away from you guys?
Yeah, so the crew is super, super professional.
That's good.
Um, yeah, most of them come from like documentary style production. So they're used to long days out in the bush. They do it because they love it, and this is like their dream job, all of them. So they don't chew gum in front of you. They don't eat food. They don't drink water. They don't do anything where you can see it, right? They don't wear any perfumes or deodorants. They're as natural as they can possibly be around you. And they're truly there just to capture your experience, not really intervene or, they just want to capture what you're doing.
Yeah, that's interesting. That was actually a question. A couple of people knew I was doing this interview tonight, and they're like, "Ask how the crew is around them. Like, are they a holes, or are they do they respect what they're
Right.
doing?" And yeah, so that's interesting.
They're awesome. And also you find that they don't talk to you.
Mm.
Because they're not supposed to talk to you, and and they keep any kind of communication to a minimum, other than like maybe a a smile and a nod and a good morning in the morning. That's about it.
Nice.
Hmm.
So when it comes to the night footage, y'all are completely on your own. Do they don't give you a gun or anything for safety?
No gun. Um, yeah, no, nothing like that. And none of my, I haven't seen people with guns on any of my challenges personally. I think in some areas they offer some kind of protection, but not that I'm personally aware of.
And I would think they would at least give you like some pepper spray or something to.
I think we have a medical bag with a walkie-talkie in it at night. So
Mhm.
hypothetically, but you only call on the walkie-talkie if somebody's like super injured or needs to tap out or something like that. Um,
Gotcha.
and it also has a glow stick and a whistle in case a lion comes. I don't know why they give you a glow stick and a whistle, but
Yeah, that would make me feel so safe. A whistle and a glow
yeah,
stick.
yeah.
So out of the 3 times you've been on the show, which was the hardest?
So I did 14 days in South Africa. That was probably the hardest of my three challenges.
Mm.
It was
And
so
why
cold.
why was that one the hardest?
Yeah, so I was not far off the ocean. I was on the what they call the Eastern Cape of South Africa, and it was like brutally cold. I was there in the end of August, so you can
Mhm.
picture April in the States. Obviously, it's Southern Hemisphere, and it just was freezing cold. There was absolutely no food. I just starved for 14 days. I decimated the frog population, and then 5 days in, there's nothing to eat. Um, so that was really, really difficult. But every place and every location has its own set of challenges.
Yeah.
That was just personally my hardest. Being cold is the worst for me.
Oh
I'd rather
yeah.
be eaten by bugs than be cold.
Oh yeah. So that was actually going to be my next question. What was your main source of food on each stop?
So the first one, I ate a lot of frog and root vegetables. The second one, um, there were these grapes there. They're kind of like a Concord grape. They're delicious. So I ate a lot of those. I also ate crayfish, snake, turtle. They don't really show anything that we caught or ate, but I think they have one snake in the second episode that I filmed. And then the third one, bananas, tons of bananas, some fish, some snake, some eel, but that was it.
Oh, nice. Eel.
Mm.
That's
Yeah,
pretty
eel is really
cool.
good.
Yeah. So, and what was the best tasting thing out of all those things you ate?
Eel is delicious. It's super fatty, like fried chicken. Um, oh, we had sugar cane and limes in the
Oh,
Philippines.
nice.
That was really good. Um, Bananas in the Philippines were amazing. Uh, Crayfish are also, or crawdads, whatever you want to call them,
Hmm.
delicious. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Now, obviously, there's some sort of compensation involved. I mean, is that based on how long you last? You get paid by the amount of days you do, or how's that work?
So I can't tell the exact amounts, but so you get compensated. It's a lump sum payout if you are to stay the entirety of your challenge, right?
Hmm.
Um, Hypothetically, if you don't stay the entirety of your challenge, you get like a per diem for the time that you were out there.
Mm.
That's how the typical Naked and Afraid works. And then on the on the XL, it's like milestone payments. So you get a certain
Okay.
amount for going out there, and then you get, let's say you make it to day 11, you get a certain amount, and then you make it to day 15, and you get a certain amount. And it builds as you the longer you stay.
Okay, and then there's a bonus at the end, pretty much, if you finish it all.
If you stay the whole time, then you get the whole amount of money.
Well, there's a little bit of some motivation. I mean,
Yeah, it's incentive for sure.
yeah, definitely. So, would
Unfortunately, the amount of money that you get is, for most people, probably not as much as they would make at their day job, or maybe comparable to what they'd make at a day job. So it's not like you're getting paid, movie star, type
yeah.
of.
So, I mean, it's replacing your income so you can afford to go,
That's
pretty
exactly right.
much.
That's all it's
Okay.
doing.
Now, would you go on a fourth time if they asked you?
I would have to get it cleared by my husband, but I would consider it. I would go on one of these for like a month out of the year for the rest of my life if I could do it
Wow.
without losing my job. It's so much fun. You learn so much about yourself. It's such a cool challenge. I mean, how many times in life can you leave society, fend for yourself, not worry about anything but taking care of yourself, literally eating and living. That's it.
Yeah. That
Pretty
does seem
neat.
like quite the experience.
It is.
Now, at the end of your journey, you have to make it to an extraction point. Is that extraction point as far as they say it is usually? Do you actually have to find it, or is the crew like, hey, it's this way?
So that map they give you, obviously super vague. You use it, but you're also, you're kind of guided in a certain direction of
Yeah.
where you're going to go. They're not going to let you fall too far off course, right?
Yeah.
I know that the hike distances vary depending on your extraction point and what your production team has set up for you. Um, I know when I was in the Philippines, we did hikes that were every bit of like 6, 7, 8 miles, like really, really long hikes. Um, and I mean, it just, like I said, it depends. That's probably the longest one I had. Another thing is you don't see a lot of what happens behind the scenes. They take a 21-day experience and cut it down to 48 minutes, right? Or 42 minutes,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? So, for example, in my Africa episode, I actually had a 2-day extraction where I had to walk a distance on day 13 and a distance on day 14 and then finish it off
Oh
with a
wow.
swim. And they cut it out. And, a lot of that stuff just gets left on the editing room floor. But, yeah, I mean, whether they're narrators, uh, distances are exactly what you hike, I don't know, but I do know that I've hiked really long distances. Um,
Oh, okay. I
okay.
was wondering if, because I've seen some episodes where it's like 7 miles, or I've seen some where it's like 2 miles, but it's through swampy areas
Yeah.
or things. So I was wondering if they over exaggerate that, or if they actually are hiking that far. But whether it's exactly what they say, it's a good distance, huh?
It's like I said, I know for a fact, because only because production had like GPS watches on and things like that.
Uh huh.
I know we hiked miles and miles and miles in the Philippines, on a couple different occasions actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, when the day has come and you finish your days and they pick you up, what's the first thing you do?
Eat. So on that extraction vehicle, usually you're shoving your face with food.
They have
And
they have food in the car.
yeah, so it's at least my experience has been, obviously it changes depending on who your producer is, but um, if you stay for the long haul, they're willing to give you, whatever it is that you've been craving. So if you tell them you want Cheetos and Snickers bars, they're gonna have a Cheetos and a Snickers bar waiting there for you, right?
Yeah.
You made it a good show for them, they're gonna make it a good experience for you to finish. So you eat all kinds of junk food, and then you usually get really sick, and then you take a shower, and then you eat more junk food and get sick again, and then you go to sleep.
do you do they give you your phone to contact your loved ones like as soon as you get to the truck, or you gotta like when you get back to the hotel room or wherever you stay?
Yeah, so usually when you get back to the hotel room, you get your things back. They'll have a bag of your possessions.
Hmm.
Sometimes you need to charge up that phone a little bit, and sometimes it's already charged for you.
Okay, cool. Now with you crushing Naked and Afraid and also being an athlete, you should give the show Survivor a try. I think you could dominate that.
I grew up watching that show with my dad,
Hmm.
primetime television, and he loved it. My dad was a huge Survivor fan. Um, it's different than is Naked and Afraid. I don't know whether, who knows? You never know. Maybe
Yeah,
someday. I have a lot of
maybe.
people tell me Alone would be a good choice on History Channel.
Oh yeah, I have not watched that one yet.
I haven't seen it either, but apparently they send you out there and you have like a book bag of gear and you're competing against other people trying to stay the longest, but you don't know how long they're staying, right?
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that sounds like a good show. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah.
That's cool. So, how can people follow you on social media?
I have a fan page on Facebook. You just Google my name. It's Gabrielle, Gabrielle. Last name Balassone, Balassone. I'm also on Instagram. If you search my name, there's only one of me, so you will find all of my social media.
Cool. Well, Gabrielle,
Yeah.
I appreciate you sitting down with me, and we'll have to
Have-
do it again here in the near future.
Let me know. It's been fun talking to you, Kendall. Take care,
Thanks.
bud.